Hello and welcome back to another 7 stories in 7 minutes. And well, last week I reported on a story, well, it's not a story, it's a fact, that the BMA were recommending or supporting GPs in sending all the patients that they needed to A&E instead of sending them perhaps to the pharmacist, because it would appear that GPs are not happy that a lot of us, or a lot of other people, perhaps not you and me, are going to the pharmacy because we're being told to go to the pharmacy for a jab, go to the pharmacy to have your blood pressure taken, go to the pharmacy for advice, go to the pharmacy for antibiotics, right? Well, GPs don't like it. Well, this week in story 1, the pharmacists are hitting back. So this story in Pharmacy says pharmacy bodies show a united front in response to sneering GPs. They say it's petty. They say, why are the GPs bothering to, is this an in-professional war, an NHS war? What's going on? So, yeah, the pharmacists are kicking back, I'm afraid, GPs. And I would say to you, GPs, where are you? Because everybody I hear from isn't actually seeing a GP. They're seeing a nurse practitioner. And even when they do see a doctor, they don't know that they're a doctor. And some of the doctors that they're seeing, they don't know if they're qualified. So people in glass houses perhaps shouldn't throw stones. Anyway, bringing us on to story 2. Now, we've been talking a lot about what happens when you die. Organ transplantation, organ donation, how they've now made it up to you to decide not to donate. So have you ticked your driving licence? Have you opted out if that's your choice? But this is very alarming from the US Department of Health and Human Services. The department have found a systemic disregard for sanctity of life in organ transplant system. And I'll just read this out. Our findings show that hospitals allowed the organ procurement process to begin when patients showed signs of life. And this is horrifying, Secretary Kennedy said. The organ procurement organisations that coordinate access to transplants will be held accountable. The entire system must be fixed to ensure that every potential donor's life is treated with the sanctity it deserves. And that brings me on to story 3, which is from Opinion, which headlines, hospitals are using circulatory death to harvest organs of living people. And again, I'd say go back and look at coma, Debi's Dots coma, because there's a lot of information on that. But basically, this is how it works, according to the article. So DCD means donation after circulatory death, right? So we just get that straight. So here's how it works. Before proceeding to organ donation, DCD donors are given a do not resuscitate, DNR, order. This is necessary because these patients could be resuscitated, but a decision has been made not to do so. Their treatment switches from patient-focused care to organ-focused care, often including placement of large-bore intravenous lines and infusions of medications for the benefit of the organs, not the patient. A lot to talk about there, and there's going to be a lot more coming up in the future about this, but have you decided what you're going to do with your organs? Have you opted out? But story 4, this is a much better news story, because you know what? Fear, the government want to throw fear at us. They want to throw threats, and they want us absolutely terrified, especially people on benefits and people that are reliant on state benefits. They've been warning that, you know, DWP officers are going to be able to access your bank accounts. They're even going to be able to, according to the Labour government, this is what they'd like, to knock on your door. That's right, DWP officers knocking on your door, basically being given powers that the police would have. But, as you can see in Disability News Service, the peers, that's the Lords, have derailed government plans to hand some DWP staff powers to use force against benefit claimants. Hooray. And further on in that article, you can read that it says that government plans under controversial new legislation to give some Department for Work and Pension staff morally dubious powers to use force against benefit claimants has been derailed by peers. Thank you for once to the Lords. Bringing me on to story 5, the resident doctors are going on strike. Yep, that's right. Doctors You're going on strike again. Well, I don't know about you watching, but I don't have an awful lot of faith in doctors. So am I feeling sympathetic to their needs? Perhaps not. But you know what? The doctors are going on strike 7 a.m. on the 14th of November. In whose best interests, I would ask? Who's that going to affect? It's going to affect the public. Turkeys at Christmas. That's what I would say. In fact, that's what I do say. Actually, that was story 6. Apologies about that. Story 7. Finishing on story 7. This is shocking. You know, those that have been watching me, I've been talking about the skinny, aka fat jabs for weeks. And this story in the Telegraph say that weight loss jabs are being used by 2.5 million people in the UK. That's 1 in 20, folks. And in my opinion, and in a lot of others' opinions, these skinny jabs, fat jabs, are very dangerous and have huge serious adverse reactions, including thyroid cancer. So the fact that there's 2.5 million on these jabs is extremely worrying. Serious adverse reactions, folks. And on that note, that's 7 stories in 7 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Hit the like button if you like, and please share. And don't forget, however doomy and gloomy it gets, they hate it if you keep smiling.